Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the December the 7th Commission meeting of the Arkansas Highway Commission. This will be our last meeting of the year, so glad you're able to join us in person. And those of you who are joining us live stream, we welcome you also. I'm Robert Moore, Chairman of the Commission. We will proceed today. I want to do as I always do, to ask anyone who's speaking, please use the microphone so you can be heard by those visitors live stream. And I'll remind myself first that when you're not speaking, turn your microphone off so you're not muddling the airways here. We'll first also entertain a motion, as has been our procedure of late, to use our electronic signatures on our minute orders. If I could have a motion to approve that. Have a motion. All in favor?
Second.
Aye. Second. Favor say aye. Ayes have it. Motion approved. We're good. Thank you. Okay, we're now going to move to our approving our minutes from the November meeting. I think everyone's had an opportunity to review those minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented? I have a motion second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Ayes have it. Motion carried. Okay, let's see. We got our minute orders. We'll come up to our number one item on the agenda. We'll do as our normal procedure here. Dave's going to go through our minutes, our agenda for today, and those items that you may have a question or comment on. If you would let me know and be recognized, and if not, we'll consider them approved as read. So, Dave, it's yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As always, Minute Order 1 simply authorizes the actions of the Purchasing Committee. Minute Order 2 gives authorization to enter contracts with project sponsors for the implementation of selected transportation-related research and workforce development grant programs. Minute Order 3, found on page 35, this action calls for the adoption of the Arkansas State Freight Plan. This is required by the IIJA Act, the Infrastructure and Investment Jobs Act. There is currently a state freight plan that was adopted in 2017. This continues that same plan. Minute Order 4. This calls for the approval to enter contracts with the Department of Transformation and Shared Services to help with financing of the 2023 Arkansas Aerial Imagery Project. Minute Order 5, this action calls for the request of proposals to select firms, enter agreements and contracts for the purpose of providing on-call planning services for the calendar years 2024 through 2026. There is a current contract in place for on-call help, which expires in December of 2023.
Mr. Chairman, I had a question I'd like to ask our director on that issue on shared services, on contracts, what do you call it, consulting contracts. This is on call.
Correct,
things.
correct.
So do we have a way to track, say for instance, planning needs on-call services, which I think was where this was going here. And so how do you weigh, do we need to add more staff in planning and do this in-house, or do we continue to do on-call services and farm it out? I mean, how do we weigh that and decide, well, it's not worth it for us to do it?
Well, that's considered all the time of what we need to do in-house and what we need to do with consultants. And that has to do with, is it an efficient use of resources to get that type of expertise when we only need it, say, for the state rail plan, we only need that every 4 or 5 years. So it's in our best interest to use expertise outside the department. It's a better use of taxpayer money. But if there are things that we do day in and day out, then that would be something we would consider to have in-house, if that makes sense.
So whoever is head of the planning area, that's something that would be in their job description, to weigh that kind of thing and say,
Yes.
hey, we're spending a lot of money over here, we need to hire a couple of people to do this.
That's right. That's
Is that
right.
the way they do it? Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Continuing on, minute order 6 in District 5, Cleveland County. This minute order simply calls for a tract of land to be deemed as surplus. Minute order 7 comes from both District 1 and 2 in Deshay and Phillips County. Calls for adding 3 portions of roadway located near the Delta Heritage Trail State Park to the state highway system. This is along Highway 600. Minute order 8 in Poinsett County, District 10. This minute order calls for the ownership of Highway 322, Section 0 to be transferred to the city of Harrisburg. The city has requested this transfer of ownership to them, as it will help with truck traffic into the Ruskin box factory. Minute order 9, Lincoln County, District 2. There's a request to rename a portion of Highway 530 from the Lincoln County line to Highway 11 Spur as the Congressman J. Dickey Memorial Highway. Minute order 10, in Jackson County, the city of Newport is requesting the White River Bridge on Highway 367 be renamed, now known as the Martin Luther King Jr. Bridge.
Lori, I was just curious, when did that bridge get opened up?
I'll have to get
Okay.
that for you. I don't
It's
know.
been fairly recently. Okay. All right. Thanks.
And finally, minute order 11 simply confirms that opening bids will begin for the January 11th, 2023 letting. That is it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dave. Any further comments or questions, Commissioners? If none, we will move on to our next agenda item for our financial update from our CFO, Mr. Patrick Patton. Patrick, you are recognized.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. We'll be going over the October numbers. November's weren't ready yet for this commission meeting. The first slide you'll see is the year-over-year actual revenue, October to October. As you can see, it's fairly flat until you get over to the natural gas severance, and it's up. It's still bringing in quite a bit of revenue. You look over to the far right under total revenues, we're up 13.9 million or 8.9%. For traditional sources, we're flat. We're actually down October to October, 1.7 million. If you look at budgeted versus actual, pretty much the same story. It's flat all the way across. You get to natural gas severance, it continues to be strong. We're 16.3 million above budget, or 10.6%. Act 416, when you look at it October to October, it's flat also. We're up $500,000 or 2.4%. Gas of the motor fuel of the 20.6 million, gas makes up 11.1 million and diesel 9.5 million. Budgeted versus actual, once again it's fairly flat, $600,000 above budget, 2.9%. Registration fees came in about $100,000 less than budgeted. If we look at fuel consumption, it's down 10.4 million gallons or 1.4% over October of last year, the same time last year. So consumption tends to trail a little bit from last year. If you look at the 12-month comparison, it's pretty flat. I mean, it's down 0.05%, so it's pretty much trailing along the same as it did the previous 12 months. Moving to our sales tax, what you have on the screen there is through October, which was 10.7 million above DFNA's projections. I've got November's numbers now, which for November we were over DFNA's projections by 2.4 million. So that 10.7 million is actually reflected at a little over 13 million over DFNA's projections through November. If you look at the half-cent sales tax program since inception, on the screen you'll see 49 million. If you take into account November's numbers, it's 51.7 million over DFNA's projection since inception of the program. Any questions? If not,
That's it, okay. Patrick, thank you again for a good report. You've always brought good news, and I appreciate that on my last meeting here. I knew it was there. I knew that was coming. Save the bad news for next year. Thank you very much. Okay, at this time, Madam Director, with somewhat a teary eye, I'll turn it over to you for the last time. But you're gonna give it back to me before it's over.
I'm gonna give it
I
back.
got a couple other things to say.
That's
Okay.
all right.
All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so Kevin Thornton will bring an update on federal highway and transit issues.
Thank you, Director Tudor. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, now that the midterm elections have occurred, Congress has turned its attention to pressing legislative issues. One of those issues is a spending bill for the federal government for federal fiscal year 2023. Congress and the President have not yet been able to reach an agreement regarding the spending bill for the rest of 2023. This is why we are still operating under a continuing resolution, or CR, that was passed and enacted back in September. That CR provides federal funding until December 16th. Congress and the President will need to reach an agreement on a spending bill or pass another CR on or before December 16th to ensure that federal funds will continue to flow. The latest information we have out of Washington is telling us that the Republicans and Democrats are negotiating a funding package that would fund not only transportation, but the rest of the federal government as well. This would certainly be good news. If an agreement is not reached to fund the government, we are expecting another CR will be passed and enacted, since it appears that the majority of Congress does not want a shutdown. As usual, we will continue to monitor the developments in Washington and keep you informed as needed. Director Tudor, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Are there any questions? All right. Next, I'm going to ask Jared Wiley to come up and give you an update on the RAISE grant application.
All right. As we've discussed here over the past year, under our current federal highway funding bill, a historic amount of funding is being distributed through competitive grants. The U.S. DOT has now announced the latest round of Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity, or RAISE grants. The application cycle opened up November 30th, so about a week ago. Applications are due February 28th, so we have a few months to work on this. A total of $1.5 billion is being made available presently. We're told on December 14th we'll get a little more information about the details of the grant. The funding will be divided evenly between rural and urban areas. We know that to be the case. All right, during the 2022 application cycle, we determined that the department's best candidate project, based on the merit criteria and the projects that we had in the works, was the Highway 5 widening project in Saline County. The project begins at Highway 183 in the heart of Bryant and spans just over 3 miles to the Pulaski County line. This project will transform the existing 2-lane highway into a 5-lane curb and gutter section with accommodations for bicyclists and pedestrians. This is the final of 5 projects that will complete the widening of that Highway 5 corridor between Interstate 30 in Benton and Interstate 430 in Little Rock. It serves as an alternate route for Interstate 30. While this project wasn't selected to receive grant funding in 2022, we did receive positive feedback from USDOT during our debrief, and so we propose to take what we learned from that feedback and resubmit for 2023.
Any questions?
Are there any applications from MPOs around the state making their own applications on any projects?
Jared, do you know of any?
There were several in the state last year. I'm not sure if any MPOs applied, but Conway was the award recipient in the state. They got a $25 million project to help do pedestrian infrastructure in the city. City of Dardanelle applied, and I think there were a few other ones as well, Commissioner.
Okay, so any city or any kind of entity like that can apply for it?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And the Conway actually received one?
That's correct. Yes, most of the grant awards did go to cities or counties last year.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
If there are no other questions, I need a motion to allow us to submit this application at the appropriate time.
Okay, we have a motion on approval on that.
So moved.
Have a motion second.
Second.
Have a motion and second. All in favor say aye. Opposed no. Ayes have it. Motion carries.
Next, I'd like to give you an update on our efficiency review implementation. So the next scheduled meeting for the Highway Commission Review and Advisory Subcommittee, or HCRAS, is on December 13th. And we will give an update to that committee of these efficiency review recommendations and our progress in implementing them. And what it will be reporting is for recommendation number 3, which is published status of construction projects and maintenance activities. Later on in our presentation this morning, we're going to be asking you for the approval or a motion to approve a selection for a consultant that will help us to make that website available to the public to achieve that recommendation. So we've made good progress on that. Our recommendation number 4, which was to implement a platform that tracks all stakeholder inquiries to resolutions. We have now held internal meetings with all divisions and districts on that. A total of 294 staff members have attended these meetings. And from those comments, we're going to use those to craft how we'll use the GovQA software that we're using to implement this recommendation. And so we're working towards getting that in place so that we will be tracking all the inquiries, all the requests for information from beginning to end. Recommendation number 5 under the procurement category is implement efficiencies in procurement and purchasing. And as of today, we have implemented online bidding for all of our procurement bids and contracts for equipment and materials that are used by our staff across the state. So as you're aware, the Arkansas Legislative Council hired the consultant that did the efficiency review of the department, and we're working on those 13 recommendations like I just mentioned. It also, part of that legislation requires that we go through a review of how well we're doing in implementing those recommendations by the Office of Internal Audit at the state level. And so we have started that process, and we have made great progress in that regard as well. Their first report to the ALC is due October 1st, 2023, and we've held several meetings. The first meeting was held on April 20th, 2022. A letter of engagement was issued by and reviewed by HCRAS and approved, and so the Office of Internal Audit will be working with us, with our staff, to accomplish what they are required to by this legislation. Not only will they be looking at our recommendations and how we're doing and implementing those, they're also going to be doing a review of our 5 divisions each year. And the first 5 divisions that they're going to be looking at are the Bridge Design Division, Governmental Relations Office, Maintenance Division, Retirement Division, and System Information and Research. To date, we've held 9 meetings with the Office of Internal Audit with the subject matter experts from those different divisions. And as of today, we've submitted 330 documents to the Office of Internal Audit, and we are just going to continue to work with them so that they can accomplish what they need to be in compliance with that law. Any questions? I'd like to just say thank you to Kevin Thornton for working so hard to get us to this point, and we really appreciate y'all's effort. The whole staff has made a huge effort, but Kevin's our point person, and he's doing a great job. Next, I'll give you an update on the 94th General Assembly. There's some important dates coming up. The majority of them you're aware of, but I think January 9th is when the legislative session starts. Is that correct? Yeah. And there's different milestones that'll be met along the way. So we're keeping up with that and making sure that Gil, he's on top of everything, and we don't miss any deadlines, and we're doing all that we need to do. There are more new members than usual this year. Republicans gained 2 seats in the Senate and 4 in the House. And in the Senate, there are 13 new members, and in the House, there are 27 new members. Let's see. And one of the reasons for this large number of new members, it has to do with the redrawing of Senate and House districts. Since the districts are significantly different, I think in past years we've shown who was it, we showed the changes between the years of who was elected and who the outgoing senator or representative and the incoming. But because of the redrawing of the districts, that was really not possible this time. So I'm just going to go through and show you who's leaving and who's coming in. Outgoing members of the Senate, Bob Ballinger was defeated in his primary by Senator-elect Brian King. Charles Beckham was defeated in his primary by Senator-elect Steve Crawwell. Cecile Bledsoe did not run because of term limits. Joyce Elliott did not run because of term limits. Colby Fulfer did not run. Trent Garner did not run, and Jim Hendren did not run. Keith Ingram did not run. Matt Pitch ran for State Treasurer's Office and was defeated in the primary. Jason Rapert ran for Lieutenant Governor and was defeated in the primary. Bill Sample was defeated in the primary by Senator-elect Matt McKee. James Sturch was defeated in the primary by Senator-elect John Payton, and Larry Teague did not run because of term limits. Incoming members of the Senate: Matt Stone, District 2 in Camden. His father-in-law was former Senator Trent Garner. Steve Crawwell, District 3, Magnolia. Matt McGee, District 6, Percy. Reginald Murdoch, District 9, Mariana. He was a previous House member. Fred Love, District 15, Mableville. He was a previous House member. John Payton, District 22, Wilburn, previous House member. And Justin Boyd, District 27, Fort Smith, who was a previous House member. Brian King, District 28, Green Forest, is returning to the Senate. He was a senator, he was defeated, and now he's coming back. Jim Petty, District 29, Van Buren. Clint Penzo, District 31, Tawnytown. He was a previous House member. Josh Bryant, District 32, Rogers. He was a previous House member. Jim Dotson, District 34, Bentonville, previous House member. And Tyler Dees, District 35, Siloam Springs. They have assigned Mark Johnson as chair of the Senate Transportation, Technology, and Legislative Affairs Committee. The vice chair has not been assigned. The members of this committee are Linda Chesterfield, she's returning. Reginald Murdoch, he's new to the committee. Alan Clark, new. Jane English, returning. Ricky Hill, returning. Terry Rice is new. So that is one committee that has to do with RDOT that we know of. So outgoing members of the House. There are 27 outgoing members of the House. They're Justin Boyd, Ken Bragg, he did not run. Joshua Bryant did not run. He's now in the Senate. Craig Christensen was defeated in the primary. Joe Cloud did not run. Bruce Coleman did not run, and Marsh Davis was defeated in the primary. Gary Deffenbaugh did not run. Jim Dotson did not return to the House but ran for Senate. David Fielding was defeated in the general election. Megan Godfrey did not run. Michelle Gray did not run. Spencer Hawks was defeated in the primary, and David Hillman was defeated in the primary. Monty Hodges did not run. He ran for U.S. House District 1. He was defeated in the general election. Joe Jett did not run. Fred Love did not run, but ran for Senate and was elected. Mark Lowry did not run for House, ran for State Treasurer and was elected. Gayla Hendren McKenzie was defeated in primary. Reginald Murdoch did not run for House but was elected to the Senate. John Payton did not run for the House but ran for Senate and was elected. Clint Penzo did not run for House but ran for Senate, was elected. Keith Slape was defeated in the primary. Brent Smith did not run and ran for U.S. House District 1. He was defeated in the primary. Stu Smith did not run. Nelda Speaks did not run. David Tollett was defeated in the primary. Incoming members: Jeremy Wooldridge, District 1 Marmaduke; Trey Steimel, District 2 Pocahontas; Stetson Painter, District 3 Mountain Home; Britt McKenzie, District 7 Bentonville; Deanna Hodges, District 9 Springdale; Mindy McLendon, District 10 Centerton; Rebecca Burks, District 11 Springdale. Hope Hendred Duke, District 12 Gravette; R. Scott Richardson, District 13 Bentonville; Grant Hodges, District 14 Centerton; Steve Unger, District 19 Fayetteville; Kendra Moore, District 23 Lincoln; Chad Puryear, District 25 Hinesville; Steve Walker, District 27 Horseshoe Bend. Bart Schultz, District 28 Cave City; Joy Carr, District 34 Blytheville; Wayne Long, District 39 Bradford; Shad Pierce, District 40 Batesville; Ryan Rose, District 48 Van Buren; Zach Gramlich, District 50 Fort Smith; and Matt Duffield, District 53 Russellville. Matt Brown, District 55 Conway; Jeremiah Moore, District 61 Clarendon; Brandon Acor, District 71 Maumelle; Tara Shepard, District 79 Little Rock; R.J. Hawk, District 81 Bryant; and Wade Andrews, District 98 Camden. So we have the House Public Transportation Committee that's been established. We won't know the chairman or vice chairman until the beginning of next year. I won't read all those off, but we have several that are returning and several that are new. So what I would like to say, though, is that we're working really hard right now to just have some introductory meetings with all these new legislators and make sure that we can give them some contact information. They know who we are. They know who the commissioners are. We've already had several of those meetings. After the first of the year, when the legislative session starts, we'll just continue with that to make sure that we reach out to all these new members, and then we're also going to have on January 11th legislative orientation for these members, where we did last year when we had the Museum of Discovery and had a presentation for them. These introductory meetings are not about really giving them a ton of information. It's just about getting to know them and introducing ourselves. So they've been really productive. We felt it's great to get to know these new legislators. They're great. So far, we've had a great experience. I think they're going to do a great job, and we congratulate them on their new roles as legislators this coming session. So we're going to start a new series with the commission around the department, and asking various folks to come and present to you what they do at the department and how that works. And I've asked Maggie Garrett, our chief auditor, to come and give you a presentation about internal and external audit.
Good morning. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today about external and internal audit activities occurring across RDOT. I'm going to cover and talk about things like timing, the areas covered, and the different types of work that are performed, and also touch on some of the various audit reports. But before I start, I would like to mention that the information in this presentation was provided to me by department, division, and section heads, along with other RDOT employees, as well as the Federal Highway Administration. And I just want to take a second to say thank you to those who provided that information. I really appreciate the response to my request for information. I'll tell you that I received a large amount of information. And I want to say this because I want to emphasize that this presentation is a very high-level overview of that information. So if there's an area where you would like me to dive a little deeper and give a little more detail, please feel free to ask. So let's take a look at the entities that perform this type of work. We have Arkansas Legislative Audit, U.S. Department of Transportation, and the agencies that are affiliated with that, such as the Federal Highway Administration, Federal Transit Administration, Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, as well as the U.S. DOT Office of Inspector General. Then we have the Arkansas Department of the Inspector General, which I will refer to as DIG, and within that agency is the Office of Internal Audit. And so I just want to point out that there are two entities that have the words Inspector General in them. One is federal, the other one is state. But they are two separate entities. Then we also have the RDOT Internal Audit section, and this is the area that I manage and serve as the chief auditor. There are a few others, which include, but are not limited to, the Arkansas Crime Information Center as well as AASHTO. So after I analyzed the information that I had received, it occurred to me that the easiest way to explain the different audits would be to categorize them as financial, operational, and compliance audits. I'd like to point out that even though an audit may be categorized as one type, it's not uncommon when performing audit work for there to be audit procedures which incorporate the other two types of audits. For example, with a financial audit, an auditor will consider the operations of an entity which pertain to the underlying processes and procedures that directly affect the financial statements. So it can be difficult to categorize the audits within these types because these categories are very interrelated with one another. There may be some audits or reviews which I discuss which could be categorized as more than one type, but I just did the best I could to select a category that I thought was most applicable for this presentation. So let's start with the financial audits. In a financial audit, the auditor will start with the financial statements. Consideration will be given to the type or size of accounts, or maybe even the number or dollar amount of transactions which support the financial statements. The purpose of a financial audit is to determine if the financial statements are free of material misstatement. So these are generally performed by an external auditor. And one example is the annual financial audit which Arkansas Legislative Audit performs. So here's a chart which displays the financial audits, and I'm going to just talk about it for a second because you're going to see this chart multiple times throughout the presentation. So as I work through the different audits and the different information, I'm going to continue to add information to this same chart. So what it is are the 26 divisions and sections of RDOT, and they are in the same order and based on our current organizational chart. So the first row is the planning branch, then you have design, operations, administration, and then the last row are the ones that report directly to the director. So as I mentioned, this is the financial audits. You'll notice that there is a circle symbol. This represents Arkansas Legislative Audit. And then you have a green color which represents financial audits. So we have one in the Physical Services Division. This one is the annual financial audit that Arkansas Legislative Audit performs of the financial statements for the entire department of RDOT. So in theory, I probably could have put symbols on all of the branches and sections, but I chose to just put it in the Physical Services department or division because that is where the financial statements are created. You'll also notice that there's one down in the retirement section, and that is because ASHRS, the Arkansas State Highway Employment Retirement System, has its own separate annual financial audit, which is also performed by Arkansas Legislative Audit. You'll also if you can see from that far away, I'm not sure if you can or not, but there is a 1 in the symbol, and this number just represents that this audit is completed every year. So let's move on to operational audits. In an operational audit, an auditor will begin with the objectives. What is the agency trying to achieve? To gain an understanding of processes and procedures and focusing on how an entity operates to achieve those objectives. Consideration will be given to control activities and determining if there are weaknesses in the internal control design which need to be strengthened. The purpose of an operational audit is to give assurance about efficiency and effectiveness of the operations of an agency. So these are generally performed by internal auditors. So the example here, we have internal audits performed by the RDOT Internal Audit Section. Here we have our chart again with more information which is added. We have another symbol, and it is a diamond, and it represents the RDOT Internal Audit Section. And we have a new color, blue, which represents operational audits. And in these symbols, you can see the letter A. So this represents that the work that we do here, or the reason we have selected these divisions is because we do an annual risk assessment. And so this is a part of our annual audit plan. And what I want to point out here is the reason that well, in theory, we actually cover the entire department. So this is another area where I could have probably put diamonds on every single division and section, but I chose to limit that to only the ones that we have been working with in the past year. So these were the ones that were on our 2022 annual audit plan. Let's see. Oh, the other thing I wanted to note here was that just because there's a diamond in the division does not mean that we reviewed the entire division. It actually means that we just did work within the division. So, for example, in right-of-way, this division has seven different sections, and we just focused our work on the beautification section. So let's move on to compliance audits. In a compliance audit, an auditor will start with learning about the rules, regulations, and applicable laws which pertain to the audit. Consideration will be given to allowable activities and cost, reporting, and can include the agency's procedures for subrecipient monitoring. The purpose of a compliance audit is to determine if the agency's activities are in compliance with regulatory requirements. So these audits can be performed by either external or internal auditors. One example is the State Safety Oversight Audit, which is performed by the Federal Transit Administration. So here we have our chart again, and we have some more information added to it. We have a square, which represents the U.S. DOT and all of its affiliated agencies, along with the color of orange, which represents compliance audits. So you'll notice that here in Transportation Planning and Policy, there's a square, and in it is the number 3. And so this represents the State Safety Oversight Audit that I just mentioned, and the 3 means that this audit is conducted every 3 years. I'd also like to point out that there are a few diamonds which are added, and this is the RDOT internal audits work. 2 of them have A's, but then the one in the 10 district has a 3. So the work that we do with the districts is also included on our annual audit plan, but I put a 3 here because I wanted to remember to tell you that it is our goal to work with each of the 10 districts every 3 years. The last symbol I want to look at is the one that is in the Physical Services Division. So this represents the Arkansas statewide single audit, which is performed by Arkansas Legislative Audit. In this audit, grants, which are administered by the entire state, are audited for compliance. There's an A in this symbol because Arkansas Legislative Audit is required to go through a specific process to select the grants which will be included. So sometimes RDOT grants may be included, sometimes not. Now I want to take a look at a couple of terms. So audit versus review. It's not uncommon for most people to use these terms interchangeably, but for an auditor, these terms actually mean something specific and a little bit different. The biggest distinction is the level of assurance which is provided. An audit will give the highest level of assurance, whereas a review has a more limited level of assurance. So an audit consists of obtaining an understanding of internal control, assessing fraud risk, and obtaining evidence to support a conclusion. Audit standards require that an auditor obtain sufficient documentation and verify that that documentation is accurate. A review will include inquiry and a lot of questions and analytical procedures such as trend analysis. And it might be best summarized as, what do you do and do your numbers make sense? A review does not require an auditor to verify information with supporting documents. If there are unexpected results from a procedure, then an auditor may request additional documentation to support a justification of that result. So we've already looked at the audits that occur within RDOT. The information here that has been added are the reviews which we see in RDOT. And I'm not going to go through every single symbol, But there are a couple of things that I would like to point out. We have a couple more shapes. So we have a pentagon, which represents DIG, Office of Internal Audit, and then also a trapezoid, which represents the other external entities that I mentioned earlier. In the maintenance division, if you can see it, there are a couple of symbols which have a C in the middle of them, and this just indicates that this work was done due to some special circumstance. So either some issue came up and prompted some work to be done, or it's possible that management requested some work to be done as well. The other thing I wanted to mention is a new box, and it's down towards the bottom, and it says Guidehouse Recommendations. So this represents the work that DIG, Office of Internal Audit, has been tasked to accomplish, which includes giving the Arkansas Legislative Council assurance that RDOT is complying to implement recommendations set forth in the report. There's a 1 in this symbol, which represents that OIA is to report every year. You'll also notice that there are pentagons in each one of the branches. So in the first branch, there's a pentagon in the System Information and Research Division. Then we have Bridge, Maintenance, Government Relations, and then also Retirement. This work will be based on descriptions of processes and procedures of what RDOT personnel provide. OIA will be reviewing these descriptions to look for internal control weaknesses, but they will not be testing or conducting any test of controls. I want to note that I placed a 5 in these symbols, which represents that OIA has planned to review each division every 5 years. So the divisions where you see the pentagon symbols are those which they have started reviewing this year. At some point, they will work their way through all the divisions in sections. So this is another case where I could have put these symbols in all of the 26 boxes, but chose just to show you the ones that they have started with. So if we take a step back, at this visual representation of audit and review activities that are occurring across RDOT, you can see that there's quite a bit of work being conducted across the agency. There are some divisions that don't have any symbols, but as a reminder, for some of the work that I discussed, I limited the time frame. Had I expanded that time frame for some of those that are empty, they would probably have a symbol. Also, just to note, previous audit and review work is a component of the Internal Audit Section Annual Risk Assessment. So this information will be considered as we develop our audit plan for the upcoming year. The areas with no symbols will likely be moved higher on the list of areas which we will be interested in completing audit work in the future. As I mentioned before, audits and reviews provide a level of assurance that processes are functioning as they should related to the area or subject being audited. This type of work helps to identify potential issues early, as well as areas where improvements can be made. When you take all of the audit and review work being conducted as a whole, it can be considered an essential part of the agency's overall monitoring system. Monitoring is a major component of internal control, and having a strong system of internal control can be a mechanism which the Commission and upper management can use to obtain a comfort level or reasonable assurance that the agency is operating as intended to achieve its objectives, its goals, and ultimately its mission. So in summary, this is a high-level overview and a snapshot of the external and internal audit and review activities occurring at RDOT. And again, I appreciate the opportunity to present this to you today, and that concludes my discussion. I'd be glad to take any questions.
Maggie?
Yes.
Philip Taldo. So in this audit, you kind of mentioned, I guess, 3 different areas you look at: financial, operational, and compliance. Is that what it was?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And So on the operational part, do you look at efficiencies and practices and procedures?
Yes.
Is that so?
And policies.
And policies.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
So then you make recommendations to that to the director, I guess.
We work with all management levels.
Okay.
Yes.
And then does the director or whoever heads that department discuss this and decide if they need ongoing attention or things of that nature? Is that how that works?
That's correct. Our responsibility is to say, here's what we found, these are our findings, and then it is management's responsibility to make the decision whether or not to implement any changes.
Okay. Thank you.
Hmm.
I had a question, comment, or something like that. What this guy just said about, Philip. Now, one question I had was in the new organizational chart. This is probably more a question for Lori. The internal audit position, Maggie's position, answers to you and to the commission. Is that under the new flow chart?
That's correct.
Okay, so we'll actually be interacting with Maggie as well. Second question, anyway, the first two items you had up there were financial audits of the physical services and the retirement. So I mean, is that the risk that you, I mean, not that there's a risk there, but that's where you would want to start normally in an organization? Is those two areas?
No, that is just where Arkansas Legislative Audit performs their work. They perform the audit of the annual financial statements of both areas. So the one that was in the physical divisions section was the financial, or they audit the financial statements for all of RDOT. And then the one with retirement, they have their own separate. So are you asking me as far as internal audit and where we would start?
Yeah, where would you recommend we start at?
Well, that's part of our annual risk assessment. So
Okay.
what we do is we take into account this information, who has been audited already, what areas have been audited already, because we don't want to duplicate work, as well as turnover and other factors, and do an overall agency risk assessment. And based on that, we determine where we feel like there's the biggest risk, and so that's where we want to focus our efforts. So we'll be working on that this month.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mhm.
One other question, you let me set too long, so I come up with something else. So, do you take input from other divisions in the department as to comments or findings in their department that affects other departments? In other words, they in planning, or they may say, well, this area over here is really a problem. You need to look at something over. Do you take input like that?
Absolutely, yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes. Although I haven't had any of that input since I've been here, so I'll say
Well, something's
that.
not working then. Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. That was a great presentation. I learned a lot when we went over this. We always have a dry run, before the commission meeting, and we went over this, and I was like, man, this is good information. I've learned a lot. So we'll be doing this the rest of the next year. I'm thinking our next one will be Arkansas Highway Police. If that sounds good to you guys, we'll do that. But anyway, appreciate that, Maggie. Great presentation. Okay, so in April 2022, y'all authorized the department to request proposals for a qualified consultant to enhance our communications on our department's website as far as construction projects and maintenance activities went. And this goes back to that recommendation I was talking about with the efficiency review. And we got 5 responses, and we got Baker Tilly, Cultivate Geospatial Solutions, Deloitte Consulting, Garver LLC, and Geo Decisions were the 5 consultant firms. And based on the evaluation committee's review, it's recommended that negotiations begin with Garver LLC of North Little Rock to perform this function for us. So I request a motion to authorize the department to begin negotiations.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion to have Garver approved as recommended to those consultations. Have a motion, please.
So moved.
So move. Second.
Second.
Have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Ayes have it. Motion carried.
Thank you. So we have a lot of upcoming events. Most of those are our district service awards, and you all know that you're invited to any and all that you can attend. We love having you there, and it's always great to have a good lunch and give out those awards. But a few that I'll just point out to you is December 13th will be the next Highway Commission Review and Advisory Subcommittee, or HCRAS, meeting. I'm going to actually be in District 1 and Wynn that morning. We'll start at 10:30 and finish lunch, and then I'm going to head back to Little Rock so I can be at that HCRAS meeting. So if y'all can be at that, good. If we'd love for you to be there. Then also, let's see, the other one I wanted to point out is the January 11th legislative orientation. Y'all are very familiar with that. We did it last year. So if you could get that on your calendar, it'd really be great if you could be at that. So with that, I'm going to go over to other business and discussion. We had a very successful auction on November 9th. It was our annual equipment auction of used vehicles, road machinery, equipment, and implements. Blackman Auctions was our auctioneer, and there were over 612 items sold. Proceeds were $2.6 million. And let's see, I just would like to thank our staff for all the work that goes into that. Danny, great job as always. And do you have anything you'd like to say? We appreciate you.
No, it was like last year. It was a great auction. There's still some carryover of the good pricing that we're seeing, that like you saw last year. And what's amazing about this was just a one-year typical annual auction. Numbers were about what you would normally see as far as the number of equipment units. Pricing was absolutely crazy, to be perfectly honest. Our estimate was well under $2 million, and we exceeded that far and away. Great crowds, just really good, and we're starting to see a lot of delivery schedules pick up to getting new equipment. So this gets, as you know, dumped right back into our capital outlay budget for purchasing equipment. So that's a big hit when you can, in one day, make $2.5 million. So,
well, we appreciate you.
thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Arkansas State University recently inducted 3 of our staff to their Engineering and Computer Science Alumni Academy. It's a top honor, and we're so proud of them. We have Jared Wiley, Assistant Chief Engineer of Planning. We have Drew Hoggart, District 2 Engineer. Paul Tinsley, Materials Division Engineer. And Jesse Jones, Rex Vines, and Derek Wyatt are already chapter members, and I believe Brad Smithy. Well, sorry, Brad.
That's right.
If you're listening in, Brad Smithy. So anyway, we're just really, ASU is cranking out some great graduates, and we sure do appreciate them. So thank y'all. And finally, I just want to give just a huge thanks to our one and only Randy Ort. This is his at least 250th commission meeting and his last. And I will tell you, Chairman Moore, this is your last meeting, and we've really been thinking about that, but I don't want to miss the opportunity to say thank you to Randy as well, because he has brought such a huge amount of expertise and personality and fun to this department over the years. He's been right beside me the whole time I've been director up there on the 10th floor, him and Christy. And I can't thank him enough for stepping up into that role, because it's a difficult role. And he stepped up into it, and he has worked tirelessly. He's always there when I get to work, and he's always there when I leave. And I couldn't have asked for a better second in command, and I think everybody in this room, all the staff, feels the same way. They'd rather go talk to him than me anyway. And I don't blame them. And so, Randy, thank you for 35 years. I knew this day was coming since the day we started together, but I appreciate you hanging in there, and you haven't given up. He's not missed a beat. The other day I said, you don't have to come to this meeting. You're getting so close to the end. He said, well, don't kick me to the curb yet. I said, well, come on. I want you with us. So anyway, he's worked hard. He's given it all he's got, and I appreciate you, Randy. Thank you so much for your service. We will be having a party and a celebration. Put it on your calendars. What is it, January 4th? That's right, January 4th. Because January 5th is his last day, but we're going to give him a break on that. All right. All right, so with that concludes my report. If there's anything else, any other business that needs to come up?
Back to me?
Yeah.
Okay, the old parting is sweet sorrow time. First of all, I'd like to say that it's a privilege to be walking out the door with Randy. If I'm going to leave, I want some good company, and I could not ask for any better company than that, and I appreciate you so much. For those of you that don't know, this is my last commission meeting as on my 10-year term, and so we're going to take some appropriate action to recognize that. But before we do, I'd like to tell everybody in the room, if you see these wonderful gifts displayed up there. Last night we had what I call the adios, goodbye, good luck, see you later dinner, and it was absolutely wonderful, and I'm just can never tell everybody thank you enough for the work and that went into it, and the fun that it was, and the joy and humility that I felt during the evening. But the gifts up there, y'all take a look at them. They're really cool, and especially thank you to Alec on the one about the 42. I mean, I think that's so cool about that he only Alec would go in and figure this out, that I was the 42nd commissioner and the nexus to the Amendment 42, which created the commission. So have quite an honor in that, and I'll always love that. The other gifts and the photo album that will I'm sure give me many hours of wine-soaked pleasure on the farm late at night. So I'm really appreciative for all of that, and I just want to look around the room at everybody here that's meant so much to me, and the support that you've given through the years. I just owe a debt of gratitude to each one of you, and I thank you. It's just been the pleasure of my life and privilege to have served on this commission and had the privilege of serving for the last 2.5 years as chairman. So first of all, I want to go around the table, start with Dave. Dave, thank you for all the notes. I'm sorry I never paid attention to them. Well, that was evident today because I got them confused. I was trying to pay attention to them, and I got them out of order, and it's like, wait, where am I here now? But it's been a great security blanket. I've always needed it there. No, I appreciate that. And Christy, you've just been invaluable to me and all the commission and keeping us on track. And again, thank you for all the work you did and the party last night, and you know, our little lunches and all that you've had to put up with me, and you're great, and I appreciate it. Rex, I thank you for being at the head of the primary job of what the RDOT's all about, and that's building and maintaining highways and all the great crew and folks you have helping you, but I appreciate that. Randy, I could never say enough about you, really, my friend. You've been, I feel like a friend for many years now, and you got 200. I figure you got 250 meetings. I figure this is my 80th meeting, so I've been with you part of the route here, and as deputy director and chief operating officer, I know you've been invaluable to Laurie and to all of us on the commission. But in spite of those impressive titles, you'll always be known to me as just the high-level official. That's what I know. He's moved around so much I could never keep up with him. And for those of you that don't know, he was characterized, I guess, in the newspaper one day by somebody else who couldn't keep up with him, and they said Randy Ort, high-level official at the bottom. So that stuck there. So thank you. And Madam Director Laurie, it's just been a pleasure. We kind of stepped into our respective roles, me as chairman, you as director at the same time, and I was really, reflecting on it, and obviously been through some really, really challenging times. You come in right at the beginning of the pandemic, and just when you think that's over, and I've analogized to you, the book of Job, and you think, well, we've got the pandemic done, and it's like, whoo, it's over, and then the bridge gets closed, and I know you kind of looked up and said, okay, enough, I get it, we've got the challenges, but even in the time of challenge, and I know you know that I mean this most sincerely, it was always there was a sense of joy, because that's part of what you do when you're in a leadership role. You have challenges and you have to face them. And some people, the challenges bring on a time of misery. And even though there were some very difficult times, there was always a thread of joy in there, because you were recognizing the challenge and recognizing that's what you do. That's why you're in leadership. And you met every one of them, and I was proud to be in the role as chairman during your time of service, and I thank you. And to each of my commissioners, Marie and Keith and Philip and Alec, I'll never be able to tell you enough how much I appreciate you and your support. And I've depended on you, I've leaned on you. You all have extended your loyalty and support and advice, and you've been there all the way in my term, and I can't thank you enough. So as I leave, I will cherish all of these memories, and but leave none of the friendships behind that have been acquired. I look forward to continuing over the years to intersperse at times and visit, and you all have an open invitation anytime you get down to Arkansas City. We've got some good roads over there, by the way. Come see us in Arkansas City at the farm, and I'd always have Beverly and I'd always have the welcome mat out for you. So with a bit of sadness, but also a recognition of a time of blessing and the joys of life in making transition. And as I've told all my colleagues here, but those of you who may be listening or here in the audience who don't know, I've had the privilege over the last 36 years of having a title. You know, I was ABC director, and then I was representative, speaker, commissioner, and chairman. And I'm kind of doing that little gasp, you know, it's like come January the 1st, I will be without a title, but my memory is still good enough that I can remember life when I didn't have a title, and it was pretty damn good. So, so I'm looking forward to the opportunities ahead, and I'll always keep these memories close to my heart. So I appreciate each one of you. With that being said, I'm sorry. Yeah, we're going to do that. Since I will be stepping down officially as chairman on December 31st, I will, and for you, I don't know if I just mentioned it, but my birthday is January the 1st, so there's a whole lot of kind of symbolic stuff that's really working good here. It's like, you know, step into a new year and a new situation with great memories of the past. So in order to accommodate the process as we move forward, I believe it's appropriate that at this time, since this is our last meeting of the year, that we elect a new chairman. So I'd like to entertain a motion to nominate a new chairman.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir. Mr. Talbot.
I make a motion that we elect Alec Farmer as our next chairman of this group.
That is a proper motion, and I know you've given a lot of deliberation to that motion.
A lot, sir.
Yes, sir. Good. Okay, to have a second?
Mr. Chairman, I have the privilege of making a second to that motion.
I have a motion and second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Let the record reflect that by a unanimous vote, Alec Farmer is elected next chairman of the Arkansas Highway Commission. And then we would need appropriately, since his position is vacated as vice chairman, to have a nomination for vice chairman. Commissioner Gibson, you're
Yes, thank you. I have the privilege also of nominating Mr. Philip Taldo as vice chairman.
That is proper motion. Second.
I'd like to second that motion.
Have
That would be a
second
privilege.
from Commissioner Holder. Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And likewise, let the record reflect that Commissioner Taldo is now has been elected as the new vice chair of the Arkansas State Highway Commission. With that, Alec, would you like to say a few words this time, sir?
Yes, sir. Love to. First, I just want to say thank you to the fellow commissioners for having the confidence in me to take over the position next year. I look forward to working with all of you and with Lori and the RDOT team. I'll elaborate more next year on my thoughts on a lot of things, but I'm looking forward in particular to two dates next year. February 23rd or February 22nd, our next meeting, when we'll officially be celebrating the 70th anniversary of the Mack-Blackwell Amendment going into effect. And then July 1st next year, when we officially have a permanent, significant source of revenue that is not tied to the fuel tax, but is grows with the economy. So I'm excited about those two things. Like I said, I'd like to reserve the right to elaborate a little bit more on the next meeting. Today's about Robert Moore, but I'd be remiss if I didn't say something first about Randy. And it's going to sound like Randy wrote this. But to be clear, I had you down as 43. He's the one that corrected me and got you at 42. So you deserve all the credit. But you know, Randy and I mean, from day one, there's been a connection. It's hard not to love Randy. We went through 2 years of being cautiously optimistic. Every time we'd see each other about issue one, what do you think? Cautiously optimistic. So that was kind of the running joke. But I've enjoyed spitballing ideas over 8 years with you, sitting there just talking about things, and out of that we had 1 or 2 good ideas come out of that, I guess. But Randy's been a real treasure to this department. His loss is going to be hard to fill. And he's the unofficial historian of this department, and history is so important, especially for an independent agency like this. You don't know where you're going if you don't know where you came from. So I challenge somebody here in this room to step up and become the new unofficial historian to take Randy's place. But we're going to miss you, and good luck with everything. With that, I'd like to turn my attention to Robert. Don't want to sound premature, but since we're not meeting again prior to January 1st, I want to take the opportunity to thank you for your service to this body as chairman for almost 3 years, and your service to the state as a commissioner for the last 10. Robert has one of the distinction. He came to the commission after serving as Speaker of the House, where he was instrumental in getting Amendment 91 passed, and then he was chairman when we got Amendment 101 passed. So, your legacy with highway funding is unmatched, and appreciate everything you've done. You've been a strong voice for rural Arkansas. You've been a strong voice for tourism, and you've been a strong voice for major corridors and connection in the state, like I-49, 69, Highway 82. And as we talked about last night at your event, you have the distinction of being Commissioner number 42 under Amendment 42, and that's something you'll have that unique position for all of time. No one will ever be able to claim that. So, with that, I'd like to ask Dave Parker to read a final minute order for consideration under your chairmanship. You'll understand why we bypassed you on this in a minute.
Thank you, sir. Whereas 10 years have passed since January 2013, and with their passing will cause to expire in January 2023, your term as member of the Arkansas State Highway Commission, we, the undersigned, your friends and fellow commissioners, those who will miss your comradeship, sound counsel, and words of encouragement, wish for your future the best of everything. We wish to recognize you for your tireless efforts and to claim your devotion to the service of this commission. Your personal contributions over the past 10 years have promoted progress and economic growth in this great state through sound planning and the application of business principles and the development, construction, and maintenance of our overall state highway system. And whereas, because of the imminent loss of the aforementioned knowledge and service to this commission, these members, acting in their best interest, do herewith, through this instrument, serve formal notice that you are hereby directed and expected to continue to serve this commission and the state of Arkansas. Now, therefore, with high esteem, we do hereby bestow upon you ad infinitum the title Commissioner Emeritus.
Thank you. If I haven't been adequately humble before, I'm adequately brought down to my knees on that one. Thank you all so much, each and every one of you. There's nothing to be said, but thank you. We'll adjourn our final meeting. Thank you.
Oh, we did. We did have something. Miraculously, we're signing it back now.
Oh, man, that is so
It has
great.
something else for the I Love Me wall.
Ah, there you go. Oh, man, I'll let you have to keep this in personal contact for a while. This would be great reading there with Kevin.
We're signing one also with the original sign. We want to go ahead with this.
Thank you. I really
Appreciate you. Appreciate it.
I'm really, this is one. Thank you all so much. Thank you.
Congratulations. You'll miss you.
Right, yeah, we'll go.